All right, first and foremost, we give all praise, honor, and glory unto the Most High God, Yahweh, and we do so in the name
Yeah,
of His
no problem.
begotten Son.
Hey, can I get the YouTube live link to
Oh,
share with people?
yeah, so just go to type in Sicarri Public Enemies. Is we live now? I'm trying to do this introduction. So again, we're gonna give all praise, honor, and glory. Are you on your computer? So real?
Yes.
Yeah, just go to the bottom right corner, and you should see it should say links. There's a link right there. But yeah, we're gonna give all praise, honor, and glory to Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai. Um, and tonight, this evening, I'm going to be engaging through the spirit in a debate or more so of a discussion with brother So Real from Shield Squad. Y'all probably have heard of him by now. If you haven't, you're hearing of him now. So, but yeah, the brother, he is a Christian apologist. So if y'all are familiar with their theology, that you understand his stance and probably understand where we defer. So, we're going to take the next 30 minutes or so to ask the brother some questions, and then we're going to give him the floor to ask us some questions. Um, without any further ado, So Real, if you could introduce yourself just briefly, and kind of give some background before we get into this.
Okay, I'm sorry. My computer is just it's a little lagging. I believe you asked me for like a little introduction.
Yes, sir.
Hello?
Yeah, introduction.
Oh yeah, okay. Yeah, sure. So my name is Matthew Sully, from Pittsburgh, Steelers Nation. AKA So Real. That is my poet name. And essentially, I'm just a Christian, from the Northeast. And if it's one thing about me, like I said, I'm just I'm not a perfect person. Um, I'm very open and honest, but at the same time, very passionate about what I believe in. And my main thing is really just having a real relationship with Christ, and trying to see the world through His eyes, and to see just the narrative and the story of just people and how things have come to be. And I don't know, just trying to see things through God's eyes, and um I think that's pretty much it about me. Like I said, I love the Lord. And I'm really here to really try my best to expound on just the truth of Scripture, and all of its you know beauty and tapestry and narrative, and the universal message of God's love. And yeah, that's pretty much I could say about me.
Okay, that's beautiful. And you are with Shield Squad, correct?
Yes, I am.
Okay. Well, I guess we could. Sorry about that. We can start. All right. So, without further ado, let's get into the series of questions we have. We're pretty much on the standpoints that the Gentiles who are receiving salvation are Israelites outside of Jerusalem, and also Israelites that lost their identity as well. And most Christians believe that those Gentiles are actually Gentiles of other nations. Can you guys hear me clearly?
Yeah, you're pretty good.
Okay, cool. So my first question will be, can all Gentiles celebrate the Passover?
Yes, if Gentiles want to celebrate the Passover, they have to go ahead and become Jews according to the Old Covenant.
Okay, so when you say all Gentiles can celebrate the Passover, you mean literally in every sense of the word, all Gentiles can celebrate the Passover.
Any nation, essentially.
Well, you know what? In the Bible, there are some temporary exceptions. I mean, for example, you do have certain passages where it says that there's certain nations that won't enter to the congregation of Israel to the 10th generation, third generation, fourth generation. You'll have things like that. And a lot of these nations don't even exist anymore. For example, the Moabites and things. But yeah, you will have some exceptions, so you'll have to wait for a few generations for them to actually come on in. But yeah, outside of that, pretty much, anyone can come on and become a Jew according to the Old Covenant, and after that, you come and celebrate the Passover.
Okay, so not every nation can celebrate the Passover. You mean because you told me that an Ammonite or a Moabite couldn't be circumcised, and you have to be circumcised to celebrate the Passover. So not every nation can celebrate the Passover, correct?
Well, once again, I emphasize that it's temporary. Like I said, you have some for the third and fourth generations and 10th generations. But I never said that they just couldn't celebrate. I think the key point you're missing is that it is a temporary thing where God said no, only to the third and fourth generation. After that, they could come on in. Those are the passages that you find. But to take that and ignore the temporary and just say, well, there's certain nations that can't do it. Well, that's kind of going against the narrative of Scripture.
Well, wait, you said it's temporary, right?
Yes.
Now, there is a case, all of these, well, not all of these, but most of these come from Deuteronomy, the 23rd chapter, as far as forbidding certain people from entering into the congregation. So when we deal with third and fourth generation, that's Deuteronomy 23, 7 and 8, and that is in reference to Edom, which actually, when you look up in Hebrew, it's dealing with Syrians and Egyptians, right? We see that there. But if we go to the top of the chapter, right, and we take a look at this, Deuteronomy 3, and I'll start at 3. An Ammonite or Moabite shall not enter into the congregation of the Lord, even to their 10th generation. So it's not saying like it says with the Edomite and the Egyptian to their third and fourth generation. It's saying here, even to the 10th generation, they still are not permitted to ever enter the congregation. And I'll give you another example of them enacting this later on in the Bible in Nehemiah 13. And I'll start at 1. It says, on that day, they read in the book of Moses in the audience of people, and therein was found written that the Ammonite and Moabite should not come into the congregation of God forever, because they met not with the children of Israel with bread and with water, but hired Balaam against them, that he should curse them. Howbeit our God turned the curse into a blessing. Now it came to pass that when they heard the law, when the Israelites of that time heard this, that they separated from Israel all the mixed multitude. So what we're seeing is that there is a forbiddance of Moabites and Ammonites from ever entering into the congregation of Israel. And you make the assertion that these nations don't exist anymore, but simply because they don't identify themselves as Moabites or Ammonites, it doesn't mean that they don't exist as a people, because we see here in Ecclesiastes 4 and 16 that there is no end of all the people, even of all that have been before them. They also that come after shall not rejoice in him. Surely this is also a vanity and vexation of spirit. So there is no end of all the people. These people still exist. And there are Christophanies, there are prophecies that exist in the Torah that explicitly speak to Christ having precedence and dominion over the aforementioned nations. So they can't cease to exist, because that would mean that prophecies concerning Christ were untrue, right? Let's give me that Numbers 24. Go ahead.
Well, can I go ahead and respond to what you said real quick before you go on to number 24?
Okay, that's perfect. Go ahead.
Okay, no problem. So the first thing is that one, I wanted to notice that it kind of makes me scratch my head, even though I'm not allowed to ask questions. Is that it's funny that we're putting all these things in the old covenant, whereas the new covenant doesn't have any of these stipulations. The second thing is I will be studying the Amorites. I believe you went to Deuteronomy 23 or whatever, but I will look at it.
Ammonites.
Yeah, Ammonites. Right, exactly. So I will be studying that to see exactly what that means. All I know is that when it says even into the 10th generation, that's still a limitation. Last thing I did want to say was when it comes to Ecclesiastes 4:16, when you actually read the entire verse, it's not talking about all nations. It's talking about something specific. It says there was no end of all the people, all of whom he led, yet those who came later will not rejoice in him. Surely this also is vanity and a striving after the wind. So this is not an end of all the people on the earth. This is all of whom he led. Now, who he is, I don't know. I need to go to read Ecclesiastes 4, and after that, I'll be able to go to expound on that narrative.
What translation are you reading that it says of whom he led? Because I'm not seeing this in the translation I'm reading, nor am I seeing it.
Okay, I'm reading the ESV. I'll go ahead and read the KJV. The KJV says, there is no end of all the people, even of all that have been led before him. Now, I know Moses, he led some people.
Hold on. Where is the word led at? I'm reading it. There's no end of all the people, even of all that have been before them.
Oh, even has been before them. Okay, yeah, that was my mistake.
That's where the confusion is coming to.
Oh, okay, yeah, it is. It says even, okay, my fault. It says even of all that have been before them, that also that may come after shall not rejoice in him. Surely this is also vanity and a vexation of spirit. I'm just confused as to how this text is being used to say that certain nations will no longer exist, when that just goes totally against prophecy, especially Obadiah. There's all kind of nations that don't exist anymore.
Edom will, according to Obadiah, Edom is the only nation that it said will cease to exist, and that's something that hasn't occurred yet. But if we take a look at Ecclesiastes 4, getting back to that point in context, if we start up at 4:15, we could understand who the people are. It says, okay. I considered all the living which walked under the sun, with the second child that shall stand up in his stead. So it said all the living. There is no end of the people. What people? All the living, even of all that have been before them. So all these nations are on the scene and exist to this time.
What I will say is that I'm going to definitely go ahead and study this, but I'm still hinged upon the part where it says all the people. And secondly, I do contest you when you said that Edom no longer exists, especially when, Obadiah makes it clear, but maybe we'll have that for a separate debate. But what I will say is that I hear what you're saying. But like I said, I'm not convinced that Ecclesiastes 4:16 is a verse that can be used to say that once a nation is here, it will never cease to exist.
Well, it's not that it will never cease to exist. Is that up to this time point where we're in now, it hasn't occurred. And
that's almost a distinction without a difference. But we could just drop it there, because
I don't think we should drop it there, because I do have one more I wanted to read. And this is a prophecy of Christ that has not come to pass yet, that verbatim mentions Edom and Moab. So if this is a prophecy of Christ that has not occurred yet, and Edom and Moab is being mentioned, then how can Edom and Moab not exist at this time as people? That doesn't make any sense. Numbers 24:17. I shall see him, but not now. I shall behold him, but not nigh. There shall come a star out of Jacob, and a scepter shall rise out of Israel, and shall smite the corners of Moab, and destroy all the children of Sheth. And Edom shall be a possession. Seir also shall be a possession for his enemies, and Israel shall do valiantly. Out of Jacob shall come he that shall have dominion, and shall destroy him that remaineth of the city. And that's that's Christological, and it's talking about Edom and Moab being destroyed and being possessions of Christ. So they have
Oh yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh no, go ahead. That's all I wanted to say.
Okay. Yeah. So first off, now, like I said, this is another text that I definitely will be studying. But what hinges off my head is Amos chapter 9, verse 12, which was written in around, I think, 765 BC, and it basically says that Israel will actually possess Edom, and we know that definitely happened with the times of the Maccabees or Judas Maccabeus. I could go ahead and pull up those quotes if you want to. Josephus also quotes it as well.
What you're doing is trying to isolate something here. Moab, the children.
Oh no. I'm not isolating anything. I didn't even get on Moab yet.
Here's why you are, because you can't say that the Maccabees did that to the children of Sheth.
No. I said that I was not getting. Excuse me. I said I didn't even get on Moab yet. That's the second time I've said that. I only focus on Edom. Now, when it comes to Moab, it's funny because now I'll have to get up these passages. In my studies, I've seen that multiple times that prophets will poetically use, and I spoke about this yesterday to Sicarri. To Hakah, the person I'm supposed to be debating, except I'm debating you for some reason. But anyway, I spoke to them about this. I said, look, when you look at the prophets, they actually use certain nations like Moab, and they'll treat them like all nations. They'll treat any other nation that's acting like Moab and call them Moab. So when you look at Moab, sure. Got it. Just give me a second there. This may take a while because I have to get up some of my old notes. So yeah, this may take a while.
If it's gonna take a while, let me just go to a
okay.
Just for the sake of time.
Yep.
Let's go to Exodus chapter 12.
I'll probably have to do it in the response video.
That's
so
fine.
I do
that's fine.
Yeah.
Let's go to Exodus chapter 12, verse 43.
Okay.
And it says, "And the Lord said unto Moses and Aaron, this is the ordinance of the Passover. There shall no stranger eat thereof." So what does that mean?
That means there will be no stranger, no non-Israelite that could partake of the Passover.
Okay, but you said a stranger can partake in the Passover.
Right. Only if he would become a Jew. That's the part you missed.
Where is that at in the context here?
Sure. Let's go down to verse, what is it at? 45, 48. It says this in verse 48. "And when a stranger shall sojourn with thee and will keep the Passover of the Lord, let all his males be circumcised, and then let him come near and keep it. And he shall be as one born in the land, for no uncircumcised person shall eat thereof."
Okay, cool. So you do know that there's one Hebrew word for stranger in verse 43, and then in verse 48, there's another Hebrew word for stranger. Do you know why that is?
And you could go ahead and tell me why.
Because one stranger is referred to as an Israelite foreigner, and the other stranger is referred to as a heathen. Why would he put two different words for strangers in the same context?
Well, let me see. Hold on. Let me go ahead and look that up. So first it's sojourner, and that's jer. Okay, so I got that one. And now that's in verse 48. Now you said the other word for strangers in verse 40.
In verse 43? It's a different word for stranger.
Okay, 43. So I'm looking that up now. And it says, let's see. It says Nakah and Bain. And Nakah says, here it is. It says, foreign, alien, foreign, that which is foreign, foreign gods. And the other one simply says, let's see, 48 says, it says, sojourner, a temporary inhabitant, a newcomer lacking inherited rights of foreigners in Israel, though conceded rights. So it seems like the only reason that it's having this different word is because now this stranger is now sojourning with thee, sojourning with Israel. So now he's not just some random stranger. Now he's like a sojourner within Israel, even though he's not an Israelite. That's the reason why the verse says, and when the stranger shall sojourn with thee. So I think that's the reason why.
Okay, we have to take a look at all this in context. There's very distinct reasons why different phraseology and words are used. I'm going to show you the same word that's used for a stranger that can eat, which is Strong's H1616, utilized elsewhere in Torah. This is Leviticus 25 and 35. "And if thy brother, an Israelite, be waxen poor and fall in decay with thee, then thou shalt relieve him, yea, though he be a stranger or a sojourner, that he may live with thee. So this is clearly in this context an Israelite who is being referred to as a stranger or sojourner. So that's why I said, let's look at this in context. So let's look at verse 48.
Mm-hmm.
A stranger shall sojourn with thee, and he will keep the Passover of the Lord. Let all his males be circumcised. No, that's not the one I want. What was it? Verse 49.
Yep.
One law shall be to him that is homeborn and unto the stranger that sojourneth among you, right? So it's saying to treat this individual as he was born in the land, right? And it's referring to this same word as an Israelite elsewhere in Torah, because it is a foretelling that there would be Israelites that would be born outside of Israel who would come back to Israel and wouldn't live amongst Israel, but would come and sojourn with Israelites to keep the certain feasts and follow the laws. Just like you would have of any nation or group of people. Sometimes you'll have people, an American will leave America, go to China, have a baby in China, but that child still has citizenship and rights in America to come back in America and partake in the things that it means to be an American citizen. So what that's dealing with is citizenship, clearly in the context.
Okay, so my response to that is that, for one, when you enter that verse that had, I think it was Leviticus, and it was saying, like, you know, don't do this to your brother, though he be a stranger. You try to equate it with Exodus 12 here that speaks about a stranger, and then after that, it speaks about this stranger who sojourns with Israel. The reason why that they are not the same is because this stranger in Exodus 12 is being described as uncircumcised, and that is the context of defining this stranger as a reason why he can't. No, hold on, I'm almost done. Hold on, I'm almost finished.
No,
and the reason why, I'm almost finished. And the reason why, you know, is because he is being described as uncircumcised. That is the context of the stranger in Exodus 12. That is not the context. That is not the hold on. Last part. Final part. That is not the context at all that you find in Leviticus. You find that he is a brother to the Jews, but yet he is a stranger. That is the same context as the sojourner. He's in an area, right, that he's kind of like a bit of an outsider, kind of like with Leviticus. For some reason, even though he's a brother, he's a stranger, he's a bit of an outsider. It has it all to do with territory. So that's the context, it's geography.
Yes, but the context in Exodus 12, where the word is mentioned, where it says the stranger that can eat, it says whether he is born in the land or not in the land. Why is he a stranger? Because he was not born in the land. It's the same thing why that word is employed there in Exodus 25 and 35.
Oh, no. That's a difference.
It's not circumcision. Again, verse 49, Exodus 12 and 49. One law shall be to him that is homeborn and unto the stranger that sojourneth among you. He's saying an Israelite, whether he's born in Israel or abroad, the law still counts for him.
See, that is and that is the distinction between us. When you read verse 49, this is strictly talking about what you have to do to enter the Passover, whether you be, hear me out. Yep. It says one law. Now, this law that we just got done reading was a law of circumcision in order for you to go ahead and partake of the Passover. That's why it said one law shall be to him that is homeborn and unto the stranger. How is this law going to be to the homeborn? You go back to Exodus 17. It says that the person who is born in your house of your seed has to be circumcised. On the law of circumcision is still there. You have unto the stranger that sojourneth with you. If he wants to keep the Passover, then he has to be circumcised. It's still one law for both of them. Therefore, one law shall be to him that is homeborn, circumcised on the 8th day, and unto the stranger that sojourneth with you. Therefore, he can go to be circumcised. Come on in. That is the one law, is in context of circumcision.
Exactly, to an Israelite. It's not.
Once again, that's what makes.
No, as we've already.
Once again, that's what makes them able to actually come into the covenant. Yes, that is actually what's able to make them come into the Passover.
If a Hebrew Israelite is circumcised or not, that's how you can keep the Passover. You can't keep the Passover uncircumcised, even if you are an Israelite. That's the point there. But when you see earlier, when the word stranger is there in reference to a non-Israelite, we clearly see them being forbidden from partaking in the Passover by law. That's the point that's being demonstrated to you clearly in the text.
Once again, wait. But once again, I just before you interject, once again, look at that law. Okay, I'll make it real quick. Look at that law. This is the same law that actually makes you a Jew and enters you in the covenant according to Genesis 17. You have to be circumcised on the 8th day if you're born there. If you're not born there, then after that you have to go and be circumcised. So if you want to be a Jew, no.
Why are you making ridiculous statements?
No. I'm not making ridiculous statements. You have to prove that I am. Excuse me. Excuse me.
Are you going to give me the opportunity to prove that you're making a ridiculous statement?
Yes, you can.
Genesis 17 gives you the criteria to how to become a Jew when Judah, where the word Jew comes from, isn't born for 20 chapters. What are you talking about?
That's a distinction without a difference. If I just say Hebrew, it's still the same thing.
It's not about just being Hebrew. It's not about just being a Hebrew either.
Yes, it is.
Understand the meaning of the words that you use, bro, because it makes you look foolish when you say this is how you become a Jew. When Isaac is just born. Israel is not born yet. So
then what do you do with Esther 8:17?
I'm becoming a Jew if Israel ain't born yet.
Then what do you do with Esther 8:17 where it says that enemies of the Jews became Jews? That's no different than saying, okay, I was circumcised and I became a Hebrew. That's no different. It's the same law.
Where in the Bible does it say circumcised means you become a Hebrew or circumcised means you become a Jew? Where is that in the Bible?
Genesis 17. If you want to become a part of God's people, whatever God's people were called at that time. I'm going to say it one more time. I'm going to say it one more time. Excuse me. I'm going to say it one more time, and then you can respond. In Genesis 17, when you are circumcised, you are becoming a part of God's people, whatever those people were called back then in Genesis 17, i.e. Hebrew, or whatever they were called during the time of Esther, i.e. Jews, or whatever time they were called after the time of Jacob, i.e. Israel. It's still one law making you a part of God's people, whether you're called a Hebrew during Abraham's time or a Israelite according after the times of Jacob or a Jew after the Babylonian captivity dispersion or whatever. It's still one law making you a part of God's people. Where this is it's a distinction without a difference. So
all right, let's actually read. Yeah. I'm hearing what you're saying about Genesis 17. Let me actually read it before we move on. Genesis 17 is 7. And I will establish my covenant between me and thee and thy seed. Not just any random person that gets circumcised. Thy seed, thy offspring, after thee in their generation for an everlasting covenant to be a God unto thee and to thy seed after thee. And I will give unto thee and to thy seed after thee the land wherein thou art a stranger, all the land of Canaan. That's another aspect of Israelites being strangers, and the land of Canaan for an everlasting possession, and I will be their God. Not just any random person that comes and gets circumcised. Thy seed. Go ahead, D.
Okay, and once again, you go ahead and read verse 10. What is the content?
Again, Deke had a point. I'm not going to continually argue with you about a point. You keep telling me about Genesis 17 when I actually read it.
All right, let's go on.
Let's go. Read it.
Right,
so
right. Now,
let's go on.
And the reason why our point is substantiated because the Bible clearly tells us that Ammonites and Moabites can't enter the congregation forever. And so we clearly see it can't be saying that strangers can eat of the covenant when we clearly see that there's nations that cannot celebrate or observe Passover. So that substantiates our claim and why
my question is
different words used. Hold on. There's two different words used for stranger in the context. So
why? Okay, well, once again, we already discussed why the two different words of stranger are there. I've proven my point, but yours is the one that's lacking, which leads me to the question: how can you say? And once again, the laugh doesn't do anything; it doesn't prove anything, But anyway, how can you say that your point is substantiated that not everyone can enter into the covenant when the verse actually says, to even to the 10th generation? That's still a limitation.
No, brother. Hold on. Before we go any further, let's just get a clarification here because I don't think you're understanding Deuteronomy 23. So I'm going to read it in context. I'm going to start from 1, right? Deuteronomy 23 and 1. He that is wounded in the stones or has his privy member cut off shall not enter into the congregation of the Lord. A bastard shall not enter into the congregation of the Lord, even to his 10th generation. So that's saying he can't enter. Even at his 10th generation, he still can't enter. Shall not enter into the congregation of the Lord. An Ammonite or Moabite shall not enter into the congregation of the Lord, even to their 10th generation, meaning even 10 generations later, they still can't. Now I'm going to skip down to 23 to demonstrate the difference. Thou shalt not abhor an Edomite, for he is thy brother. Thou shalt not abhor an Egyptian, because thou wast a stranger in his land. The children that are begotten of them shall enter into the congregation of the Lord in their 3rd generation. So we see Ammonite and Moabite shall not even to their 10th generation, meaning even at 10 generations, they can't enter. But we see with Edomite and Egyptian, it says they shall upon their 3rd generation. So we see conditions here that allows them after 3 generations to enter to the congregation. But we see it says they shall not even until their 10th generation. They will never be allowed to enter into the congregation.
Okay, so 2 things. Point number 1, I noticed that in verses 1 and 2, these stipulations can be on anybody, which includes Israelites. It didn't say, a bastard, only the bastard is not of Israel. No, it just, hey, if you're a bastard, whether you be Israel or not, you can't enter the congregation, like, period. So verses 1 and 2 apply to anybody. Second thing is that this is slightly off topic, but it's just my own inkling of questions. With all this, who can't enter into and being Israel in the old covenant, what do you do with the new covenant? It doesn't have these stipulations. It's just makes me kind of think as to why you guys are pushing it so much.
What does that have to do with the number one, the point that you're wrong about Ammonites and Moabites ever being permitted to come to the congregation? It has nothing to do with it. It has nothing to do with the question that's being presented now. You can ask that question when it's your time to ask questions, and that's fine. But we need to deal with the fact that there is clearly a prohibition on 2 different ethnic groups of people from ever entering into the congregation of the Lord.
Right. So my whole thing about Deuteronomy 23:3, when it says an Ammonite or a Moabite shall not enter into the congregation of the Lord, even to their 10th generation. And this is a part that you didn't read, which I thought you would. They shall not enter into the congregation of the Lord forever, because they met you, not with bread and things like that. Like I said, so far you're right. A Moabite and an Ammonite, they cannot come into the congregation of the Lord. I'm gonna have to go ahead and just study Deuteronomy 23 and see what else I find. But so far, I submit to you that point.
Perfect, Ken. Go ahead.
Okay, so and we wanted to establish this just so we can prove a point in Scripture, because when we see the fact that 2 nations of people cannot enter to the congregation, therefore prohibiting them from celebrating or observing Passover, then they substantiate the point that the stranger here that is mentioned, Nakar, is talking about all the heathens that can't. And then the Gur that can is talking about the Israelite foreigners. When we see scriptures like Exodus 21 and 22, it says 22 and 21, actually. It says, thou shalt neither vex a stranger nor oppress him, for ye were strangers in the land of Egypt. And then when we read,
I'm glad you went there.
And then, so what is that? What stranger is that?
I wanted to
vex a stranger nor oppress him. What does that mean? What stranger
once again, that's from, I'm going to pull that up right now. That's Exodus chapter, where's it at?
22 and 21.
Okay, Exodus 22 and 21. Okay. Yeah, because this was actually part of one of my questions, but I guess I'll go ahead and just exegete the passage. It says this: thou shalt neither vex a stranger nor oppress him. Now, this stranger here is an ethnic stranger. How do we know this? Because it's actually being compared to the Israelites. Look at this with his next part. It says, for ye, now who's the ye? The ye is, the Israelites of whom God is talking to. Ye were strangers. Now, is that the same definition of stranger as the one that's being vexed? No, because it says, for ye were strangers. Now, here's the context: in the land of Egypt. So this is a definition of strangers by geographical location of they don't belong to the Egyptians, or they're not, the land of Egypt does not belong to them. That's not their land. Therefore, they're strangers in that land. And it's being
Okay, so
compared
Matt,
to, no, almost done. And it's being compared to a actual stranger that's being vexed or oppressed, period. It just is a stranger.
okay,
So those are two types. So there's never a stranger where a Israelite is a stranger by some type of ethnicness. No, they're stranger based on this context because they're in Egypt. Now, are Israelites in Egypt today? Some of them are, some of them are not.
Okay, Matt. So you're telling me that it's against the law to oppress a stranger?
Yes, it is. Bible. According to the Bible, you are not to vex a stranger nor oppress him.
Okay, now can you read Deuteronomy 23 and 20 for me?
Sure, yes. All right, Deuteronomy 23.
And then get that word for usury and tell me. The NIV says it great. I know that's your favorite translation.
Actually, it's not. Seeing that you never even asked me what my favorite translation was. But let's see. It's Deuteronomy 23:20, and it says, "Unto a stranger thou mayest lend upon usury, but unto thy brother thou shalt not lend upon usury, that the Lord thy God may bless thee in all thou settest thine hand in the land whither thou goest to possess it." I think it's interesting that this, this verse here seems to be talking about how are you to be and act in the promised land. So
you can oppress a stranger when you're in your land.
No.
That's what the Bible is saying. It's saying that you can oppress a stranger, but you cannot oppress your brother.
Hold on. Where are you getting this? Hold on. Are you getting this from Deuteronomy? Yeah. Okay. So because I'm confused where you're getting it.
Look up the word. Yeah. Look up the word usury. See what it means.
Okay.
In the Greek.
All right. Just give me a second. Yep. Hold on just a second. Here we go. It says here, let's see, to bite, to pay, to give interest, to lend for interest, to give me interest, to make, to give interest. In other words, if someone borrows from you, you go ahead and give them back, plus you give interest. So it says, unto a stranger, you can lend upon usury. In other words, you can go ahead and give them something, but when they give it back to you, they got to give a little extra. But unto your brother, you shall not lend upon usury, right? That the Lord thy God may bless you in all that you said. In other words, you're not to go ahead and, do that with your brother. You can go ahead and do that with strangers. They'll go ahead and you give the strangers, right?
I see you.
But they'll get back to you.
Good job.
Yeah.
Because I don't know what definition he's reading. He's playing.
Yeah.
Actually, I'm reading. Hold on, I'll tell you. Actually, I'm reading Brown, Driver, and Briggs. But yeah, that's what I see. So in other words, to the Jews, if you want someone to borrow money from you and they're not a stranger, they can borrow money from you, but hey, make sure they give back interest. But when it comes to your brother, you can't do that. You know what I mean? Whatever you give, if they give it back to you, great. But you're not to go ahead and give them extra. And then the context is God will bless you.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Let's just read this strong definition real quick. It says to strike with a sting as a serpent. That's what it says to this word for usury. To strike with a sting as a serpent. So we can strike non-Israelites with a sting as a serpent. Figuratively, what does that mean? Figuratively, to oppress with interest on a loan. That's what the definition is. So I wanted to say that.
So according to the context of verse 20 in Deuteronomy 23, there is no striking if you're going to go ahead and lend. There is no way to physically strike anyone. Now it does say figuratively. It says figuratively to oppress with interest on a loan. So according to Strong's, you're basically going to go ahead and that'll be a type of oppression according to Strong's. Now, according to Brown, Driver, Briggs, that's basically non-existent in a lot of other ones.
Also,
Can I ask you a question? Have you ever heard of something called a predatory loan?
Yes, I have.
Okay, so is that a form of oppression if you were to give somebody what they would call a predatory loan?
It could be, depending on the context. Yeah.
Okay, cool. So would you say like, because oftentimes you hear the terminology like a loan shark. A loan shark is a predator. Would not also a serpent be a predator? So wouldn't this be like a predatory loan?
Yeah, I do see what you're saying, but the problem is no animals are mentioned in this passage, and also no form of oppression is mentioned in this passage.
So, well, an animal is not mentioned in the passage, but the Hebrew word that's utilized here literally means to bite, which is what animals do to their prey. So that's why I'm saying it's a predatory loan.
And once again, this is a part where we need to understand lexicons, because we actually go to the context of the writer. That's the ultimate definition. And this is the reason why lexicons have multiple definitions. You know, so you go ahead and look at the what you're reading, and you see what you basically see what the writer is saying the most out of the definition that you're reading. If it just happens to unfortunately skip over the biting and then oppressing, but it ends up landing a perfect bullseye at the lending of money and things, then that's basically what it means.
Okay,
for you to go anywhere beyond that, for you to go anywhere beyond that is to actually eisegete the text.
Okay, so let's take a look at how this word is utilized. Number one, the word is nashak. The root of that word is the Hebrew word sh or the shin, which literally in Paleo Hebrew is teeth. That's what
that is a root word fallacy.
It's not a root word.
Yes, it is.
It's not a root word fallacy. I'll explain why it's not a root word fallacy, because this is dealing with Hebrew. You cannot employ root word fallacies in the English language to the Hebrew language.
I repeat myself, sir. That is literally a root word fallacy. You need to definitely study Michael Heiser to actually break this down to you. This is linguistic basics.
This is incredible. It's not linguistic basics. You're not a linguist, are you?
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. It's a no.
Are you a linguist? No, then you can't make.
No, well, neither are you. There is no qualification for me to be a linguist in order for me to say something that basic.
I am a linguist.
Okay, then what languages do you know?
Hebrew, Paleo Hebrew.
And not only that, but once again, where is it that you have to qualify? Excuse me. Wait a minute. Where is it that you have to qualify?
All right. Moving on. I'm not going to do that. You said in order to define what the context of that word is to take a look at how that word is used. As I attempt to do that, what do? You're changing the subject. Stop doing that. You're not going to talk over me on my goddamn YouTube channel. That's what you're not going to do. Ridiculous, man. Act like a grown-ass man for once in your life. That's a linguistic fallacy. You can't.
Excuse me. I'm not changing the subject. You need to just go to. I'd rather you. Excuse me. I'd rather you prove that. Excuse me. Instead of just saying things, I'd rather you go ahead and just prove it. You know, I would never say that about you.
If you would shut up, I would prove it. Just shut up.
Excuse me. Excuse me. I'd rather you prove things instead of saying things.
Again, if you would shut your damn mouth, I would prove it.
Excuse me. That's highly disrespectful. I respected you the whole time.
It's disrespectful.
No. Excuse me. It's disrespectful.